Let's do it.
This is the SEC Insider Hit. And it's presented by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue.
Oh, man. Retention, attrition, transfer portal, high school recruiting, all kinds of things going on to make y'all take crazy pills. Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by the Men's Clinic in Madison. Dr. Mike Manning, Dr. Cliff Adams started the Men's Clinic over a decade ago. Their mission is to help men manage the aging process and to help them be the very best possible at every stage of their lives. They offer safe and effective testosterone replacement, nutritional supplements, and IV infusions, powered by the Men's Clinic in Madison and Dr. Mike Manning and Dr. Cliff Adams, right here on Highland Colony in Madison, not but a mile away from where we are above Beagle Bagel in Madison. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone. You can watch the show on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. That's our channel. Love for you to go there, hit subscribe. And also, you can go to Facebook and search the Out of Bounds Show. We welcome in Hail State Insider, genespage.com, 247 Sports, Steve Robertson on the Yuengling Lager guest line. Steve, I know you're working on something with Ra Thomas, the who, the where, and the why. Can you feed us a nugget or two of what you're going to drop today on your site?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be today. I've got some things we're working on and kind of digging into this, kind of see what has really transpired, and it may be nothing. It's as simple as that. I mean, that's the thing. If you talk to enough people, you can hear whatever you want to. That's the story of life, and so you got to go out and vet some information. I was out in New Mexico last week and kind of put some people off, trying to spend some quality time with the wife, and got back in Starkville about 1 o'clock yesterday morning, went to bed, got up and returned all these calls, and there's some concern. Let's just say that there is some concern.
Okay. What about, there's been some pushback, people in the Mississippi State fans, I'm looking at your site right now, talking about Dylan Johnson and Woody Marks going. However, we had somebody inside the program said that is not the case right now. I know things can change in 10 seconds. What's the latest on the two running backs that carried the way in the Golden Egg game? Obviously, that offensive line was awesome as far as run blocking, but the two were probably about 60, 70%, and they played really well. What's the latest on Woody Marks and Dylan Johnson?
Well, both of those guys are absolute warriors. I mean, both of them played hurt most of the year, and, hurt and injured are two different things, but those guys, battled through some adversity this year, and they're big parts of this program. And there's obviously in this wild west of the transfer portal and NIL, obviously there are some opportunities for people. And so that's why the Bulldog Initiative is so important. It's, you got to be able to offset some of that. You got to be able to help these guys, and so, at this point, I don't know how to feel about it. I think it's probably going to end up being okay, but I do know there is some concern about it. There is, you got guys of that caliber, of course, people are going to be in their ear saying, hey, you need to be in a scheme where you can carry the football more and show that you are a, bona fide NFL prospect, and that's something guys have to consider. I mean, the air raid offense isn't for everybody, though. Woody Marks and Dylan Johnson have both had very good careers to this point. I think Woody Marks played really both of them played their best football of their career this year. And, they were thrown to the wolves in 2020, and, they've shown that they're willing to answer the call. And so, it's something we'll monitor. I think we probably will get some news on Woody Marks today. I think that's probably the case. I'm hopeful that we'll get some resolution on that today. And again, I don't think it's a situation where, that it's going to be a negative outcome at this point. But you just never know. And that's the thing. Now you kind of mentioned it in the lead into the segment is, we're in a 365-day-a-year news cycle when it comes to college football. And with yesterday being the first day of the portal window, 45 days now, 247 Sports did basically a day-long streaming event like we do for National Signing Day, just kind of talking about who's going in the portal and what impact they could have and what options they may have. But at this point, we're hopeful that Mississippi State retains them both.
All right, talk about the guys that are coming back for Mike Leach in MSU that have been announcing via social media on both offense and defensive side of the ball.
And that's huge. Most of those guys you expected back, but I would say Jaden Crumedy and Bookie Watson, of course, probably the two that were the least likely to come back. And Bookie Watson led the Southeastern Conference in tackles this year. I mean, I don't know that anybody saw that coming. We knew he'd be productive, but to lead the league, and then Jed Johnson's coming in right there at third. So two of the top three tacklers in the Southeastern Conference call Starkville, Mississippi home and expect to be back next year. And so, Jaden Crumedy is the guy that I would say that beginning of the year that I thought would not be back. Probably he and Emmanuel Forbes, the guys who said, hey, these guys will definitely go. And then Crumedy gets banged up and only plays in 4 games. And so, the fact that he probably still has some things to prove, I'm sure, is a factor in his decision. I mean, the guy's a very talented player and probably feels like with another year he can show the NFL scouts what he's capable of and probably make himself some additional money.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports on the Yuengling Lager guest line. What about Tulu Griffin taking over as far as you've had other schools, both in this state and in the surrounding areas, that have had guys that really get it and recruit and use social media. Tulu seems to have stepped up for Leach and the Bulldogs in the last week and a half.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I mean, there's a high level of buy-in with him, and there was a lot of rumors surrounding his possible plans, and he may go in the portal. And, that's the thing, too, I've learned these days. Everybody claims sources. Very few people truly have them, but everybody claims all these sources and that Tulu was going to leave and go somewhere else. And you see him out here on social media, and he's basically kind of leading the Bulldog recruiting efforts in the portal and having some level of success, too. I mean, it seems like every big-time player that goes in, Tulu was out there asking those guys to contact him directly. And that's what you want. I mean, every program deserves to have some guys like that are having a great experience and are eager to tell, prospective student athletes, what they're doing. And I think you've seen him become more of a leader in that respect. And I think that's huge for Mississippi State.
The Out of Bounds Show brought to you by Edwin White's Golf Shop on County Line Road, where most of the programs are going to take a different approach. Do you feel like Mississippi State's approach is going to be more about retention? I mean, they'll do some transfer portal stuff. There are going to be a lot of players overpaid, people reach, whatever. But how do you think they'll balance retention to acquisition?
Yeah, I think that is the interesting question. And I think, the state has always kind of been more of a developmental program. I mean, you look at our own state, I mean, the approach that Lane Kiffin took with the portal compared to Mike Leach. And those guys obviously had a bunch of transfers last year, not at the same level of Ole Miss. And it's still such a new process. I mean, it's difficult to really, make any judgments at this point about what's the better way to do it. But I think Mississippi State, by and large, would rather go out and get that kid like Cameron Young that maybe is a little bit lightly recruited but has a high ceiling, and then you develop him. And now here you are, and you'd rather invest in retaining guys, I think, than procuring guys. And there are some guys out there that are too good to pass on, and you just got to kind of pony up and make it happen. But I think the approach from State and Ole Miss, both their current plans will remain in place, and we'll just kind of see how things go. But I don't think you're ever going to see a situation where Mike Leach allocates half of his class for transfers.
What do you expect from Braden Locke and Sawyer Robertson? Do you expect one of the two to stay? How do you see spring and the backup quarterback at Mississippi State for Leach behind Will Rogers?
Yeah. Well, Braden Locke just got here, and so I don't expect anything to happen with him. I mean, I guess we could see Sawyer Robertson make a decision after the spring, but I think when you look at the year that Will had, he had a good year. He didn't have a great year, and there were a couple of games out there where the game kind of fell in his lap, and he wasn't able to really navigate through it and get state of victory. But, I think Will, and sometimes is being kind of harshly criticized for things that aren't always in his control. And when you're the quarterback, that's kind of the price of poker. But I would suspect both of those guys stay for now, and then maybe Sawyer Robertson revisits things in the spring.
What are your – all right, last weekend they hosted guys. This weekend, though, when does everybody go to the Miss Al check-in at the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game, Steve? What day is that?
I think today, actually. I think it's today. I've been out of pocket here for a few days, and so you have to forgive me if I'm wrong about that. But
Okay.
that's a thing too, because there's so many Mississippi State commitments there. They'll be around Isaac Smith, who is arguably the best player in the state, certainly the best defensive player in the state. I mean, Get Perkins from Raleigh is an absolute freak, and so it's one of those two guys, kind of dependent on your needs. But I think having those guys around kids that are very favorable to Mississippi State is good, because I think that's the thing that happens in a recruiting process. They're not just beholden to a staff or to a program, but to each other. And so guys want to play together, and that's a big part of this thing as we move forward is, having a comfort level of knowing who you're playing with and who you're playing for as you kind of move forward in your decision-making process. And Isaac Smith's a guy, too, that I think is a day one contributor. There's a lot of other high school guys that need a year to redshirt and kind of get seasoned, learn how to work, and I just don't think that's the case with him.
How many do you expect them to sign from the state of Mississippi on the 21st, I think it is?
I think there's probably only a couple guys left that you look at that you say within the state that are SEC worthy, and obviously Isaac Smith is one of those guys. But I think in the end, Mississippi State's always going to skew more towards the in-state kids, just because of the fact that that's the developmental piece. I think you'll win some in-state recruiting battles regularly every single year with Ole Miss, but I also think you've got to be able to supplement where the in-state talent crop is a little bit deficient. And this year there's not a ton of offensive skill in the state, so you're going to have to go strike some fire outside of the state. And so I do think state will always be 50% plus when it comes to getting the in-state prospects to sign early. But we'll see how things go. I don't anticipate a lot of big state Ole Miss battles down the stretch. There's always one or two that pop up late, but I don't anticipate a ton of that.
Do you think that the staff will look at MJ Daniels from South Mississippi, who signed with Ole Miss at the 13th hour a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, state needs to go get a safety that's got some level of experience. The thing that I wonder about is, are there better options out there with more college level production than MJ Daniels? He is a talented player, no doubt, but he struggled to get on the field at Ole Miss, and so you begin to think, okay, did we miss on this guy? Or would a change of scenery be good for him? I think that's the big issue now is, does he fit your immediate needs? With Jackie Matthews now going pro, foregoing his final year of eligibility, State needs a guy back there that can make plays. And we talked about on your show back in fall that Jackie Matthews could be a potential difference maker. And I think he was. I think they were a much more physical team with him on the field. Does MJ Daniels provide that same level of service at this point? I don't know.
Okay. Were you surprised to see Jackie Matthews announced for the NFL draft?
I can't say that I was surprised either way. Wasn't exactly sure what he was going to do, but I think Jackie Matthews is a guy that could probably benefit from coming back for another year. But you never know who's in their ear. You never know who's suggesting, what's the best course of action. But the reality of it is guy come in here and played exceptionally well, and he could parlay that opportunity into a professional football opportunity.
Yeah. Steve Robertson, the Boneyard Podcast, genespage.com on the Out of Bounds show. Outside of Isaac Smith, who they're battling LSU and Ole Miss for, and I would think he's the number one target left on the board, who would be the number two target left on the board for Leach and the staff in recruiting?
Yeah, that's a great question, too. I think Kobe Keenum is one of them, just because of the fact that he's a guy they've been on throughout the process and going to take an official visit to state. I think that he's a guy that could man one of those interior line positions for potentially 3 years. I think he needs a redshirt year to get bigger and stronger and get acclimated to playing college football. But I do like his ceiling. I think he's a guy that could play any of those interior spots, potentially be a center for you. I mean, that's one of those things that a lot of these guys, too, in high school play out of position just because they're the best offensive linemen. They could play offensive tackle, but they get to college and they need bowl practices and things like that to kind of learn to get snaps back and call protections. But, really like him. And I think Caleb Bryant from Vicksburg is a guy, too, that, State has been on throughout the process, Is he a difference maker? I'm not sure about that, but I do think that he is a guy that can contribute at Mississippi State. And I think when you look at what they've done so far on the defensive line class, you feel pretty good about the direction of things, but you got to finish.
All right. And do you expect them to look around in the transfer portal at the QB position?
Yeah, possibly. I don't think that they'll go out and scholarship a guy. When Mike Leach first got here, our Washington State counterparts told me he is going to add competition to the position every year. He's going to sign a QB every year, going to work the portal, probably get a veteran walk-on guy. I mean, you look at what he did with Adam Gordon there at Washington State. I mean, he was a walk-on guy that had a great year the season after Gardner Minshew was kind of a national favorite. But, yeah, I think you'll see some new names show up in the spring and compete. And let's be honest, Will needs that too. And that's not a criticism of Will.
No doubt.
Everybody improves with more competition, and you and I are in the same boat. It's like it keeps you on edge. It makes you work harder. You don't cut corners when you know that you have to do everything right. And so I think Will benefits from having some additional competition, but I do think Will Rogers is your starting quarterback in 2023.
Okay. And you expect Locke or Sawyer to hang in there and be back in Starkville, or both?
If I had to handicap it today, I would expect both of them to be back. But, Sawyer Robertson had some big moments in the fall, and there were some weeks where he took more first-team reps than Will Rogers did. And a lot of our fans wanted him to get more playing time this year, and that's something I can't really argue against, especially in some of these blowout games where, he gets into the last series and hands football off, and then he finally gets a chance to play against East Tennessee State and did not play well. We all saw it, but that's not indicative of who he truly is. I think it's just the game kind of sped up on him a little bit. He's probably a little bit nervous, but I do think that you'll see him get a lot more reps in the spring and probably make this thing a little more interesting. And again, everybody benefits from that.
What do you think Xavier Thomas will do for Mississippi State?
I think he probably sticks. And one of the reasons why, I don't know that he's done enough yet to really command a lot of opportunities with NIL. I think if he came back next year and, had a 50-catch season and maybe scored half a dozen touchdowns, then maybe it puts him in a better bargaining position when it comes to NIL with Mississippi State or somebody else. And so I just don't know if he's done enough yet to really command a lot of attention. That's not saying he wouldn't get some offers. I'm certain he would, and I'm sure there's some people in his ear encouraging him to do that. But not everybody that has advice when it comes to college football recruiting has your best interest at heart, and that's something you have to consider.
All right. Thanks, Steve Robertson. Appreciate it. 247 Sports, Gene's Page, the Boneyard Podcast on the Yuengling Lager guest line. You can enjoy a Yuengling Lager and any of the amazing burgers or sandwiches at Bulldog Burger on Lake Harbor in Ridgeland, Bulldog Burger in Starkville, and Bulldog Burger in Tupelo, Mississippi. Man, I felt like we had a busy day today, Blake.
We 100% had a busy day today.
3 interviews.
One in studio.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we're just working hard, man. We're like Deion Sanders. We don't ever stop.
That's a good point.
That's right. What's that? I'm coming. So that should be our new motto. That's what Deion said. He told Colorado, get your butts out of the seats because I'm cutting all of you and I'm coming.
Oh.
I think that's what. Maybe I'm paraphrasing.
He basically said if you're not salvageable, then his plan for injured players, he said get treatment if you're salvageable. If you're on the list, they told me you aren't worth a damn, it's a wrap. We're going to hug and kiss and say goodbye. That's a quote.
How do you feel about young athletes being deemed salvageable or insalvageable?
That's interesting because we get real emotional about high school and college players. Even if we talk, I've been doing this for 20 years.
It's a business.
Okay. And even though travel ball now at 8 years old, there are people who spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But here's what I've found. If you even constructively criticize a high school or college player, there's still a lot of pushback from not every listener, but from, certain people.
Forget criticism. Deion literally just told you he will pull scholarships when you get hurt.
Yeah, and
that happens, but we don't talk about it.
And he did it at a university that, let's just be honest, it's a snowflake university.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's about to go to Colorado, and there will be players cut who I mean, and here's where it gets
if you
dicey.
think that's the perfect place for the tenured professor,
yeah,
Boulder, Colorado is.
Here's where it gets dicey. I think where people get a little upset is you are talking about kids who, like, that's their ability to get an education. It's their ability, for a lot of people, not everybody, for a lot of people, it may be their only opportunity to either escape an impoverished situation or find themselves back in a bad situation.
But you can't have it both ways. Here's what happened the last few years. The players, and I don't blame them, decided we want the ability
to be compensated
and to move around.
Correct.
Great. Coaches have the ability, let's just call it what it is, cut you.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
I know that's the term we used in the NFL. And in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when we were very collegiate in college football, people didn't – see, even if the guy wasn't worth a damn,
he just stayed on the roster.
On your roster.
Yeah.
I can remember going to 9,000 games at Veterans Memorial Stadium. Hindsight 2020, I wondered why a lot of those guys were on the roster. Once you signed a kid, you stayed with him. That's fine.
We've been pushing kids out of college football the last 30 years, though.
You got Ra Thomas that, is leaving. You got Luke Altmaier that's leaving. You have the ability to be a free agent. You also have the ability to what? Be cut.
Yeah, I think we've been cutting kids by pushing them out.
High school coaches cut kids too.
Yes, correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's not get all, on the soapbox about and Blake, kids get cut on travel ball teams that are 10 years old.
Correct.
So
have you ever seen that show Dance Moms? They're ruthless, okay?
Oh, I have.
Ruthless. It's like pageant. It's like little girl pageantry stuff.
Competitive dance or whatever.
Yeah. I see the stuff that pops up on like Twitter, the social media cuts. Those women are crazy. Crazy. And they talk to 8-year-old girls like they're trying out for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. I'm like, dude, that girl doesn't even know like what's going on, what she's eating for dinner tonight. Like, why are you yelling at this child? But it's the same thing in our other sports too.
Yeah.
Because parents have made it to the point of, and this maybe goes back to the whole argument. It's so funny how the Jordan Brady argument of you can't be successful unless you take home the trophy.
Right.
There is no such thing. Dan Marino must not be good. He didn't win a Super Bowl. That philosophy.
Tennessee had an amazing year. And Mississippi State, just considering their schedule, I would challenge Mississippi State fans to embrace the Tampa ReliaQuest Bowl. And, you went 8-4 with 10 games in play. You went 8-2 because you weren't beating Georgia or Bama.
No.
That's pretty damn, for who you are, it's pretty damn amazing. I would celebrate it.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, how many years have State and Ole Miss baseball finished without the title? And we just write that off, right? We're going to say, oh, that wasn't a good season. Right? You finished second to UCLA in 2013. That's not a good season.
I think getting the Super Regionals is absolutely
You made
incredible.
a Sugar Bowl last year, but you lost to Baylor. It must not have been a good season, right? Like, that's, it's a little tongue-in-cheek with some of that.
On a positive note, we just had an amazing show. If you missed Dr. Larry Field with Mississippi Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Center, Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, or Steve Robertson, 247 Sports, Gene's page, you can go to Apple Podcast and search the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Apple Podcast, search the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Lunch today brought to you by Bulldog Burger. And yes, they have Yuengling, Blue Moon, and Coors Light to go with your burger or sandwich at Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland, Lake Harbor in Ridgeland. We'll see you tomorrow.